actually making records, they're doing it in this very different way than I understand producing to be. And I wanted to go that path. I wanted to be like that. That was yielding results that I was like, okay, this isn't just a job. Like, they're making shit that they really like.
Welcome back to the No Flakes Podcast. Episode 3. That is Doug Showalter. Doug is a current producer based out of Nashville. He's been on some massive records, including Harry Styles, Miley Cyrus, Camp Country, Nothing More. I met Doug at Musicians Institute Hollywood about 20 years ago, playing guitar, and his story is very interesting, how he made his way into the production side of things. Hope you all enjoy. Doug Showalter.
But man, it's good to see you. It's been a long time.
Yeah, man. Seriously. So you're in Nashville, yeah? Are you in Tennessee somewhere? Nashville? Actual Nashville?
Yeah. Nashville for sure. I live in East Nashville.
Sweet, man. Yeah, so I haven't actually seen you since me and Doug, for my listener out there, we went to the lovely Musicians Institute, Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
Around, what was our era? Maybe 2005? Was that our zone of when we?
Yeah. So I started in September of 2005 and graduated in March of 2007.
That sounds about the same as me.
Okay.
Yeah. And man, wow, didn't it kind of, it seemed like an eternity, but also at the same time, it went really fast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this time right now, I mean, we were in school 20 years ago, which is
insane.
It feels, I mean, just think of life like 20 years from now.
I know.
Which feels, A, I'm in no hurry to get there. And exactly. 2, it feels like another eternity sort of ahead of us.
Dude.
Yeah. But I think it feels, I think because I don't live there anymore, it feels like it was so much longer ago. It's funny now when I go, so I moved to Nashville in 2015.
Yes.
So I did 10 years in LA.
Yeah.
Went to school, graduated, lived in like West Hollywood-ish area, slept on couches and stuff. And then in 2009, I got a place in Los Feliz. Yep. And that's kind of where I met Cam, the artist that I went on tour with. I met Tyler Johnson, who was kind of my gateway to being a part of all these cool records. So that was really 2009 to 2014. That was really, I feel like, the window of okay, I went to school. Yeah. I was sleeping on couches and saying yes to anything that would pay me music-wise. Yeah. And all of a sudden it was and in that 5-year window, especially when you're first starting, those peaks and valleys are kind of intense, wouldn't you say?
Oh my God. I had just years of, I kind of was still trying to find my way once I got out of music school. I was okay, I could play guitar and all these letdowns of I didn't get the Katy Perry gig or whatever. You know? So,
yeah.
And then you're just doing the same thing, just taking every gig. And I had to go on my own little journey, but yeah, it took a solid 5 years to start finding work that was kind of real for me too. Yeah, but yes, let's I want to go way back though. So you're originally from Indiana? Is that where you're from?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Nice. So we're at in Indiana. I think I did a little bit of my Googling research. Kokomo? Or is that, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. So I grew up, it's a town called Kokomo. It's about an hour north of Indianapolis. And very solid community. I think it's the kind of place where it's just one of those American small towns that you could kind of live in your whole life and never leave. I think everybody owes it to themselves to sort of, everybody's life circumstances are so different, but I feel like if you're able to, getting out of those small towns, even if you end up coming back at different points, is I just think it's so important to kind of see what's out there,
Absolutely.
in the world. And especially if I just felt so lucky. So I grew up there and I was always into music. My dad was he was a musician kinda, but never took it super serious. He was more of just a music fan, just I would come, I would see him just blasting music and playing air guitar. And so I think when
Nice.
I really took to music, it really excited him.
That's
And
cool.
he just was extremely proud and supportive the whole way. So, I think for any of us, for anybody listening that's sort of like thinking about a career in music or whatever it is, it's just sort of like, when you have that support system early on, it's so important because you meet people who maybe didn't have that. And then
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, I mean, you can find the confidence within, I think,
Yeah.
but I think I just, as I get older, I realize like, from my dad and the rest of my family. I also, Kokomo at that time, I don't know why this was. I'm sure every small town in the world had some version of this, but like there was just a ton of bands and a ton of really interesting creative people. So
That's
I
awesome.
think that, and I think I just noticed that and just saw to it that like, once I got over the hump of like middle school, of the awkwardness of adolescence and all that, I was like, you know what? Music and guitar is kind of my life and I want it to be my life. And
Yep.
so even as early on as like high school, I was always playing guitar and always like, but I had a lot of different friends and I would do all the kind of normal stuff. I played high school football, like varsity football.
Nice.
So I took like TV production classes because this is like the late 90s, early 2000s where like, at least when the school I was at, there weren't really any music classes other than
Yeah.
like show choir, which I did do.
Yeah.
And so just any opportunity to be creative at all, like I would take it. And then I graduated in 2001 and I went to Indiana University, Kokomo, and lived with my parents, stayed playing in bands. I worked at a music store. And then again, it just the seriousness and excitement just kind of my taste kind of brought in working. There were some guys that worked at that music store that really, once you kind of get out of the framework of your family and your close friends, you're meeting these other people that didn't grow up with you. And they're like, hey, you because in your mind, they're wanting to make music with you. And you're like, well, I think you're really good.
Yeah.
So if we're playing together, that must mean that I'm good.
Right.
And then that kind of started like just having a bit more confidence to be like, you know what, maybe I could like move away from here. And I originally wanted to go to Berkeley. I think like probably most of us that grew up at that time, that was like the thing you heard about, like John
Yeah.
Petrucci from Dream Theater,
Yeah.
formed at Berkeley, or John Schofield, or I'm sure we
Yep.
could think of numerous other ones. And I had heard of GIT in Hollywood, but I had a friend who I worked with who was a bit more like, he just had traveled the world. He was a little bit more cultured than me. And he was like, man, we should move to LA together and go to GIT. So I was just like, sounds good to me. So we got, and
Nice.
everything just kind of lined up for me to do that. I graduated from school, just all the details around finding a place. It just like every step just really like came together. So I was
That's
like, okay,
amazing.
this feels good. So yeah, that's kind of a summation of the first 23 years of my life is growing up there and just playing in bands, teaching guitar lessons, working at a music store, whatever version of being obsessed with music that you could have at that time. And it was like a juxtaposition of like going to a lot of concerts. And it's funny because my life now is still pretty much the same, where like you're trying to find this balance of like, you have this voice of your parents in your head where you're like, I got to make money. I got to figure out how to make a living doing this, and in the world in 2005, you're thinking, I feel like now people are so lucky to have access to, and who knows, we can only speak from our own experience, but like my assumption is that people maybe the age that we were then now, they maybe have an awareness of what the different options are. That's my
Yeah.
assumption.
Yeah. Yeah.
But who's to say? Who knows? But I just know for me at that time, I was like, all I know is if I move to LA, people will pay me to play guitar for them,
Yeah.
and it would probably be better than what I'm doing here in Kokomo, which was mostly just playing in bands, which was awesome. But I don't know, there was just a point I reached where I was kind of like, man, I feel like I felt very empowered. I was like, I can do this. I think I can be like in the music business,
That's
you know?
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you go out to Hollywood. I was pretty similar story because I'm from Bakersfield, which I think we've
Yeah.
talked about. So,
I actually forgot about that. And my partner, Joanna, we've been together about 10 years. She's actually from Bakersfield.
yes. So, yeah,
Yeah.
same thing for me. It was like, I need to get out there and see some, honestly, just more versatile players, is what I was
Mhm.
looking for. But that was the crazy thing about MIs because you would get there and you would see a player like shred a Dimebag Daryl solo, but then
Mhm.
also be able to play through changes of like any jazz
Yeah.
song. And you're like, oh my God, like people can do this. This is crazy. It's just wild.
Well, and good on you for just from I know that the times that we've been able to kind of catch up online, you're still like you're making it work with music, and
Yes.
there were people that I can remember at that time, like there were a lot of guys that I was friends with, and to some extent, I mean, we haven't really kept in touch as much, but I could see pretty early on, like I was like, okay, I can see that you're like, I don't know what the right thing is to say. It's like you just saw that people were like, there were some people that like it was a lot for them,
Right.
whether they were intimidated, they were homesick,
Yeah.
whatever the circumstances were. You just saw very quickly, you're like, okay, you got out of that small town and that small pond, and now you're here. And then you're just like, and I'm
Yes.
sure we all knew people that quickly moved back home. And then you graduate and then you kind of keep in touch with people. And, there are definitely some people from when we went to school that I think are doing great. And I'm sure in some way, shape, or form, everybody is involved with music. But
Yeah.
you know, it's a pretty grueling hustle,
It is.
whatever it is. And you have to just, I think for me, that North Star is that thing that I learned in Kokomo and from my dad is just that excitement. I mean, even just last night, like I went to a show here in Nashville. I'm about to I post these playlists every week on
Yeah.
Instagram of like music that's inspiring me. And sometimes there's stuff on there that I worked on that came out. I think about it all the time with the internet. I'm like, I just sometimes I don't know if people know what to make of me, but a part of me kind of likes that too. Like I just
Yeah.
try to be myself, but while also understanding that there is kind of a language of the music business, in particular how producers and songwriters present themselves like
Yeah.
online.
Sure.
And I think I just try to find that balance of like I want to be authentic and artistic, I guess,
Yes.
but also just sort of I don't know what the term is. It's a weird balance. It's this weird thing where I'm always trying to find this balance of like making sure that I stay excited and I don't become jaded, which I can understand if that happens to people, while also just realizing that like it is a business and how you present yourself is very important.
Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting you're talking about how you kind of portray yourself online and stuff because one of the main reasons I kind of wanted to reach out to you is because I used to follow you, or I still do, but I guess it must have been around like 2009, 2010. It was like Facebook times, right? Facebook
Yeah.
was big, and I was kind of starting to work, and I was working in bands, and I think I saw that you started working with Van Hunt, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Van Hunt, amazing artist, like really
Yep.
groovy soul vibes. And
Very underrated and I think very perennial.
yeah,
I think the way that we look at how sort of alternative R&B has sort of there's just such an amazing world of music in what I consider that vein, that alternative R&B space.
yeah.
And he's definitely one of those artists that I think helped pave the way for that. And I kind of feel like he doesn't get the love that he deserves.
I
So
would have
anybody
to, yeah,
check out Van Hunt.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would have to agree because I honestly I couldn't remember his name, and I was
Yeah.
like, dang, and I had to do a little digging, and I was like, oh yeah, it's Van Hunt. And so I was listening, and I'm looking up, and he did release a new song I think recently,
Yep.
and it's
Hmm.
amazing. And I think one thing that I noticed, tell me if I'm wrong, you would journal and post them. Wouldn't you do that when you were on tour? Am I wrong on this?
Man, that could very well be true. I don't remember that specifically. But I, especially at that time, if I'm thinking, because I met him in 2009 and we did like a residency at this place called Zanzibar in Santa
Uh-huh.
Monica.
Yep.
And then we would just, we would go to New York and do a show. And then we would do something kind of random. And then fast forward to like 2010, 2011, something like that. And then I did a tour with him. It was about a month long. And then I did another tour the next year. And so during that time, that would have been like 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that would have certainly been a time of Facebooking. And I maybe I did post something about what we were doing and what we were playing. I can definitely remember some like pictures that I took. I remember I would like make my own shirts.
Nice.
Like I would we had this tape that we would put on the ground so you could, because we were playing kind of in some cities we would play these pretty small places, and we're all like myself and Peter Dyer, we're like professionals. And so we're kind of like, okay, we're in this dark place. How do we make this work? So we would have this tape that would allow us to be able to see kind of where things were on stage. Yeah. I think that's what we were doing. But I would then take that tape and I would make shirts sometimes. Like I had one that said "Funtry is cuck." I made another one that said "Yellow Pants."
Nice.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing him up because he is such a vital part of what I feel like has been my journey and story. Right. Because, for me to have spent, growing up, I was like always into like super heavy music. Right. And then, like any young guitar player, you start discovering jazz and all these kind of things. And then you go to music school. And when I went to music school, I was like, all right, I'm done with all this heavy music. Like I want to really expand my mind and learn as much as possible. And so I feel like that time with him was really where me broadening my tastes sort of coalesced with what I felt like was some of the things that I really loved about music early on. Because I would do stuff that was kind of metally, like pick squeals and I always loved like Mr. Bungle and various offshoots of that, like avant-garde stuff. There was a period where I was really into like Sun Ra, just shit that was just weird. And so he was just so like, you be yourself, whatever you think. I'll let you know if I don't like it.
That's amazing. That's
yeah.
So cool.
And so I felt like to get paid to do stuff like that, was just so, it was such a, and then that time spent with somebody who was so knowledgeable and free, I can't say enough about him and the influence that he had on me that I think plays a big part in the skill sets that I have now.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's still rare to find a gig that's like a national touring artist that will let you like do your thing, They are out there. I'm not saying they're not out there, but it's more common than not that you're like, here are the tracks, you're going to play this part, and there's like an MD that's standing by the stage saying, okay, on this part, you kind of played this a little weird, So it's very cool to actually get to throw in your little flavors, on a tour, so.
Yeah, no, and I think it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, you still had to know the songs. Like you had to be, it's like that, I don't know, it's like that. I always go back to this thing I watched about Steely Dan, and I could be totally paraphrasing this, but my memory of watching this interview with Donald Fagen and Walter Becker, I think that's their names. It's like they, their whole thing was like they wanted the musicians to really know the songs, but then once you knew it, then expand on it. Yeah. I don't even really listen to a lot of Steely Dan, but I think there's a few songs that I liked during music school, but I just like that philosophy more than anything.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like the Zoolander where he's like, I'm really into Sting. I don't listen to his music, but I just love what he's putting out there,
Yeah. That's funny. That's kind of Sting and the Police definitely have some great songs, but he's also, anyway, that's a whole other thing. But, so my point is like, right. And then even fast forward to like my time with Cam, there was, that was like, okay, especially early on, like, I was playing on that first album, and I was sort of like one part of a team that was helping her kind of find like essentially the start of her career. And so, and at that time I was just so into like acoustic guitar, and actually I don't know if I was into it, but it was like, I could just tell that whatever, and this is something that I like to tell people, is like you can have this idea in your head of like where you want to be and what you want to be doing. And I think it's always good to go for that. But at the same time, you don't want to necessarily write off opportunities or collaborations that might be, because it just, when it comes down to like music is so subjective, and unless you're doing everything completely on your own, you know, but then you meet people who you share a similar energy, similar energy. And that was definitely the thing with Cam and like Anders Mortson, who we went to school with, and a lot of the people in that band. It was like, we're all so different, but yet we have similar values, energy, level of seriousness. So it was, I think when I started doing that stuff, growing up in Indiana, playing all this weird math rocky / Incubus music, to, and I don't think Incubus is math rock. I think it's just Incubus was definitely like 311, Incubus, that kind of music was definitely what sums up that kind of period for me. And then, fast forward to playing with people like Van Hunt and doing all these different things. And now I'm playing acoustic guitar in like a country band. And I think that people were like, I didn't grow up listening to anything like that.
Right.
But I loved the people, and I also realized, I'm like, she's signed to a major label, and I'm like writing songs with her, and I'm like, this is the thing. This is what you work towards, and it's not exactly the way I envisioned it. So even now, like, I mean, a couple years ago, I started working with a manager, and who I don't work with anymore. But at that time, I just had this idea in my head. I was like, I want to write with metal bands, and I love this music. And I got the opportunity to do that. And that song came out. It's not like a big song, but it's with this band Nothing More that I really like, and I was like, I can do this.
Dude,
but I think
sorry to cut you off. That album is the best album that's came out in years, dude. Like, that is
right on.
My favorite. And I was very aware of Nothing More before that album, and all my friends really loved them, and I was like, I liked it. It didn't really hit that hard to me though. But dude, that album is insane. Like, I still listen to it almost every day. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're really awesome guys. We've definitely worked together since then. I think a big part of why that album stands out is, they worked with Drew Falk, who's like, he also goes by Wizard Blood. Awesome guy. He's the guy. He did the new Knocked Loose. He's done Motionless in White, Disturbed. And then I think he's just a very super nice guy, very well-rounded. And he really is, he's right now in the modern metal space. In my opinion, I think he's the guy. He's the guy. I mean, he's the guy.
If he's doing stuff like that, then I would have to agree.
So to be a producer on a song with him was sort of like, wow. And, but I guess my whole point of tying this into my story of being open and flexible is because, like, I wanted to do so much of that, but I also realized once I started meeting people that made that kind of music, I was like, okay, this style of production and everything is its own world that I don't know anything. Like, I only know how to do things my way. And in that instance, I think it was just the stars aligned to where I was able to meet them and work with them. And I think that, like, it's just being very open-minded and broad in the opportunities that you take on, I think is like, I don't know. I just remember at that time, I just was like, I want to be this metal producer. And I think that I got that opportunity to work with them, and it worked. But then I also realized, like, the people that are in that world, they're so good at that thing. And if I stopped what I was doing now and tried to catch up to that, it would move on. So it's just, I think it made me realize, like, okay, like, Doug, just keep doing your thing, and don't feel like you have to just go in this one lane. Like you have to be this kind of, because when I really reflect on it all, it's like, I've just been so lucky and still get to do so many different types of music and with so many different types of people. And I think a lot of that just stems from being open.
Yeah, that's
you know,
amazing.
and not being too rigid with my expectations, you know, because it's like so many times I've had a vision of what I wanted to be. And I think sometimes people, if you don't have your expectations met 100%, you know, it can really deter you from keeping going. And I just, anybody listening to this, like, just keep pursuing and showing up every day. But just, I think it's very valuable to be open. But that being said, there are definitely people who have a very sharp focus and they get there. So who knows?
Who knows? Who knows what we're talking about? So what song was it that you worked on that one?
Down the River.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, so those drums that start the song, those are drums that I made for my own project.
Nice.
And the song never quite came together. So I remember, like, when I met them, I was like, I've never worked with a band. They're going to show up because that's like a producer songwriter. You're kind of, in some cases, especially in Nashville, most people can play instruments and stuff.
Right.
So like when they show up, you kind of just figure out like where you can kind of meet them. But with them, I was like, man, the guitar player's coming, the bass player's coming. What the hell am I going to do? Yeah. And so I just put on that beat that I made for my own song. Nice. And because the song itself, I just never quite it just never felt quite good enough. But the drums, I was like, these drums are the shit. So I was like, I put those drums on and they were like, and they told me later that they had never written like that before. Huh. They were like, we had never just written to like a drum beat, which that's a very pop music thing to do.
Yes.
You know, in a session. So it was like, it was just in that moment, it was so validating for me because I was just like, man, all this I've been working towards, like, I knew I could meet these guys who were in this heavy band. And at that time too, because I've since worked with some other bands, and like those guys were just at a place where they were very open. Mm-hmm. Some people may not be open. So when they show up to my studio and I'm like, check out these drum machines and this other weird shit, they can be like, that's cool, but we want to do this. And and you got to respect that. But I feel like with them, it was like, they just were they're like, what do you think? You know what, we're open. That's amazing. It was just, I know I actually have a tattoo from the release party. Nice. From when because I just think for me it was like so validating to be like, I grew up, bands like this is what I grew up going to see. Like I would go to Ozfest and Warped Tour and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I was like, man, in my mind in that moment I was like, I've made it. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it is amazing because it's one thing to, you know, do the job that you kind of set out. Like for me, like I was always just like, I just want to make money playing music, you know, like whatever that means, I'm happy as long as I play guitar. But then to actually get to the point where you're like, I'm making music, I'm making a living, and I'm doing exactly the kind of stuff I want to do. That's so sick. It's really amazing.
Yeah. No, it definitely, especially at that time, I'll never forget going to that release party and like, you know, my management's there and part of that's kind of awkward and weird because, you know, people are coming that are there for you. And, you know, and I don't drink anymore. I'm kind of like, I'm not really like super I'm very like extroverted and social, but like I feel like when it comes down to celebrating and things like that, I'm just like, okay, what do I, this kind of feels weird and awkward, but also kind of amazing. And maybe if I was partying, you know, it was fun. Yeah. But I think it's just, I just take it all really serious. Yeah. And so I think, anyway, I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but it's just, again, just connecting the dots of what I'm talking about. It's like, I mean, man, and even now, like I'm starting to really feel good about like the music I'm making. Nice. Which to be honest, I wasn't. Huh. For a while. Yeah. Because I think that I got really swept up in just doing a bunch of sessions and you start, and, you know, and naturally, as you know, when you go to music school to play guitar, like you learn to be of service, which is good. Like,
Right.
I think that's that job. But back to the point of like when you can play, I've just come to terms with the fact that like I don't really like being told what to do,
Yeah.
you know? Like, and I've always been that way, like in a creative, but I also have enough experience to know like, okay, but I can't just like do that. I have to
Right.
you have to earn people's respect. Like you have to earn their trust, especially in creating music. Like
Yeah.
with people who have made the crazy choice to devote their life to their own music. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you don't just get a pass
Right.
to go in there as an adult. So like, it's one of those things where like I realized very early on, and that's part of why in 2018 I officially kind of stepped away from like being a working musician
Right.
because I
So
was
I
like,
I wanted to talk to you about this because
yeah,
I feel like, and I might be making these things up. I don't know, but did you kind of like announced it like you're on like Facebook or something? You're like, I'm like stepping away from.
yeah,
Um,
I know
did,
what you're talking
yeah,
about.
you were like, I'm stepping away from like being a touring musician. I'm going to focus on just writing music and producing. Is that true? Did you say
Yeah,
that or
so
something like that?
y-
Right.
I did say something like that. I know exactly what you're talking about. So basically, I played a show with Cam in September of 2018, and then I remember my family was in town, so we all kind of hung out. And then the day after everybody left, I started posting on Instagram. It would just be like a random picture, and it would say like day one. And I did that for a year. So I would be like day 214. I'm sure it was very annoying to people. And but then after like a couple hundred days, people were like,
What
what are you talking about? I know at the time my niece, who's now she's pursuing a career in the arts, she was like, yeah, someone told me it was days of kindness. And I was like, whoever told you that, I like them. That's not
Yeah.
what it is. But
It's,
the fact
yeah.
that somebody thought that, I'm into that.
Yeah.
So like I did that. And then after that year, that's when I did that post that basically just said, like, I know people have been asking me about these days, and it's the amount of days that I feel. And at that time, I labeled myself as an artist.
Yeah.
So I basically just said, like, it's a year away from being a professional musician, and I've been able to, because the way that I kind of looked at it at that time, and I still look at it that way. I think at that time in particular, so basically around like 2015, a song I produced for this artist Rafferty got used in an iPhone commercial, and it was like this massive thing where it was used in so many commercials. I had publishing on it, I had master share, and at that time it was such a big commercial that the use of my background vocals also got me royalties. So overnight, like I literally went from like barely making any money to paying off all my student loan debt, like paying my parents back, and then I was still touring. So like all of a sudden, like overnight, like I had all this money.
That's amazing.
And so, which was great. And I think, I was buying a lot of records. I was just doing whatever I wanted. And it was a very modest version of like a rock star story.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time, that's when I decided to move to Nashville. And I moved into this little house. It's not where I'm at now, but at that time I got this little house that I rented, and I just turned it into a studio that I lived in. And when I wasn't with Cam, I moved into this little house, and I was like, I'm going to turn this into a studio. And so like whenever I wasn't touring, I didn't really have to run and do other things.
Yeah.
So I would just like smoke a bunch of weed and like just sit in this house and play guitar and try to find. I mean, I don't think I thought about it at that time, but now looking at it, I was just trying to re-engage with that exciting part of making music. Because up until that time, it was just like gig after hustle, which
Yep.
again, I was so grateful to do. And I learned so much. So yeah, I think just to summarize what I was saying, like, because I just sort of started going all over the place, but yeah, I think in that earlier part of like moving to Nashville, getting the little house, I was single at that time, I was making money. So I just was like, okay, here we go. we are just going to go nuts. And I was buying all these pedals and just all those things that I always wanted to do, but couldn't really ever afford to do.
Yep.
And then I also at that time, Cam lived here. My friend Tyler Johnson had moved to Nashville too. So it wasn't just my own motivation. It was like I had a community of people that also were like really encouraging me to kind of be crazy at that time. And so, I was touring with Cam, coming home, staying up all night, making this weird music in the studio, trying to figure out how to be a producer. Because when I was in LA, I was producing, but I was doing it all in a bedroom and doing it in that very like, I don't want to say traditional, but like, I'd play, and maybe you ran into this too. Like you're playing with an artist. They're like, oh, do you write? Yes, I write. They like your vibe. Then they hire you to produce stuff. You send it to your friends to play drums. He sends it back. But when I was working with Tyler, and Tyler had worked with Jeff Basker, who did a lot of stuff with like Fun and Kanye West and Pink and stuff, I was watching their process and I was like, okay, this is a whole different world. People that are actually making records, they're doing it in this very different way than I understand producing to be. I wanted to go that path. I wanted to be like that. That was yielding results that I was like, okay, this isn't just a job. Like they're making shit that they really like and they want to bump in their car. When I got to Nashville, I got this house. I was making money from this sync. I was touring. And then, for about 3 years, I just kind of did everything. And then in 2018, I stopped, started posting on Instagram, and then kind of made that announcement that you were talking about where I was basically like, in this probably weird poetic way, was just like, I've stepped away. And I looked at it as being an artist because I was spending all my time. I was being hired to like do things at that time, but it was like I wasn't playing somebody else's music.
Right. Yeah.
So that's me connecting it full circle to your question.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's very amazing. And it's honestly, it's quite unique because so many players, musicians, like me, I play with artists. I play with small artists. I play with cover bands. I play with big artists. But I'm always just playing someone else's music. I write to and I produce, but for the most part, the money that I make is just playing guitar and singing for other people, right? Which is rad. But yeah, it's got to be very liberating to be like, you know what? I'm just gonna do my thing. It's amazing. So yeah, I have to bring this up because I was kind of like preparing for this last night. And as I was going to a gig, I was driving to Lake Tahoe. You ever been there?
You know what? I never have.
Yeah. So anyways, I was playing last night, but I was listening to Octopotamus. That's your thing, right? Dude,
oh yeah, yes.
That easy to forget, man. That is a freaking jam, dude.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is a jam. And so who is that? Elliot Root is the vocalist, but he's got a different name, right? His real name is
name is Scott Kruger.
Okay.
Yeah,
dude,
so Elliot man, yeah. And talk about a whimsical journey of a song. Like, because Octopotamus was actually a name I came up with when we were at MI. It was just a name that I thought of one day. Yeah. And like I used in around 2013, I started doing kind of like electronic music under that name, where I would go to like Harvell's or places like that. And I would just have a computer and play guitar. And then I just got busy with other things, so I couldn't really work on it. But I always loved the name. And then again, going back to that window of time, staying up all night, smoking weed, jamming in the studio by myself. No supervision. And I just started writing these kind of heavier songs for the first time in a really long time. And so I was like, but then I was combining it with the sort of production stuff that I was learning from being around Tyler. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, this is dope. Like, this is really interesting and unique. And so but that song in particular started out as like a very through composed, no click track song that I wrote that was instrumental. Then I had somebody sing on it. And then I was just like, I just messed with it for years.
Oh,
Like, and I was
wow.
like, there's something about this that I like, but I can't figure out, because I felt like I was showing people stuff. Like, I'd have friends at the studio and they would be like, no, this is cool. This is like your heavy side project. And I'm like, no, like, this is the thing. This is the sound, that
Yeah.
I want to do. And so
Yeah.
I realized that, like, the songwriting wasn't good. Something about it wasn't making sense to people. So just like over the course of a couple weeks and jamming with some people, I realized, like, that song in particular, I was just like, I wrote that chorus. I then mixed it with the music that I had from this weird instrumental thing that I made. And within a couple days, I just had it. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is it. Finally, years of fucking with this thing. Like, I have it the way I want to. And so Scott is just somebody that I've known for a long time, who I've always thought was an amazing singer. And I hired him to sing it. And
Yeah.
he was really cool about being featured on it, because his artist platform is just bigger than mine. So that made all the difference. And, the other songs have other people singing on them too.
Yeah.
But it's like, he was just super awesome. And, and we've been able to work together since then. He still does that project. He, like me, he does a lot of sessions. And, but I really loved working with him. And that song, it's funny, when I moved out of my old spot and we moved into this house, I had been there for like 8 years, and I was like, okay, I'm about to leave. What's the last song I'm going to play on these speakers that summarizes the whole experience of being here? And it was that. That was the last song I played in that place. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love all those like super trippy. There's like backwards like vocals or something that are part of it, right? Like, it's so trippy. It's sick. I love it.
Yeah, and I mean, those drums were like my old drum kit from when I was like 22, that I like looped and kind of made that way. I mean, again, it's funny because I work so hard to try to get, when you go through periods where you're kind of ignorant, and I'm sure as a guitar player you can relate, where like there was like a point where you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah.
So then you listen back to it and you're like, damn, like, I wish I could capture that. And you have to just, the more you know, the more you have to sort of unlearn.
Yeah.
And so and so even yesterday, I mean, like, I was learning this band Deerhoof. I was like learning one of their songs, and I had to tune my guitar all weird, and I had to like, but I still learn songs. I would say that's probably the biggest thing. I always had a good ear, but like from MI, learning how to write lead sheets, just how much you had to play and practice, and the discipline that you got.
Yeah.
That was probably the most valuable thing I got out of that. On top of because the relationships there are sort of what webbed into those other opportunities. And I'm sure it's the same for you.
Yeah, pretty much. I was on my own little journey at MI, honestly, and it took me a while to kind of like find my way post MI. Mine was a little different, but definitely still worked out. Still have my relationships, but so did you mix that yourself too?
No. The guy who mixed that is named Ingmar Carlson. I did mix the other songs, but my version of it was pretty similar, but like I realized that it had just, and who knows, maybe again it was all that time blasting music and smoking weed that like everything was just so loud and distorted.
Yeah.
But I liked it, but I knew that I was like, people, because I was just listening to I've gotten to know some people in Nashville that are like part of this avant-garde sort of noisy scene. Right. And I like that kind of music, but I also have enough commercial music experience to know that kind of thing will immediately deter somebody from liking something that doesn't just listen to that. So I was like, Ingmar was somebody I was working with at that time. I did a song for this artist, Lennon Stella, and he mixed it. And I had met him before, and I could tell he was a fellow lover of heavy music, but worked in pop music. So I was like, you're my guy. So I sent him the song, and he was like, this is great. He's like, but I can't, it hurts my ears when I turn it up past a certain point. And I was like, you're hired. Yeah,
Right.
like that's
Yeah.
what I need help with. And so,
Yeah. You're like, fix it.
so yeah, so I mean, if I showed you my version of it, it's not radically different,
Right.
but he just really finessed it in a
Yeah.
way that made it to where, yeah. And that was the last song I put out for that project. I've done other things since then. I have fully finished songs, but just, when you put music out into the world, you kind of have to live with it.
Yep.
And I just was like, some of these other songs, I was like, I just don't love this.
Yeah.
Like, and right now it's that's why I really feel for artists right now, because to compete in this modern time that we're in with entertainment, you just kind of have to keep doing stuff. And it's a lot to ask of people. It's a difficult business model to really feel amazing about everything that you're doing. I think there's people that do it. I think there's people that probably put things out all the time that they love. I wish I could be one of those people, but I also have just worked with so many people that it's like, especially like the further you get into your career, it's like you have to have a really specific business model in place that allows you to only put music out every couple of years.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Otherwise, you're just in that rat race that everybody's in, that we're all in. And so anyway, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I feel like that's a world of music that I've made that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah,
and
so that's easy to forget by your artist, your Octopotamus. So look that up, people. It's a serious jam. So I have a question, because as a producer, and I'm a producer myself, I write my own music. What is your relationship with Suno in writing?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. So I'm pretty new to it. I have been using it lately. Like there's a song I'm working on right now that I write a lot. Whether it's, I would say so far this year, there hasn't been as much of the like sit with a guitar. I wrote a song yesterday, but I always like to make what I call vibes on in the box, where, and I'll use like over here, there's like, this is kind of some gear here. There's like, outboard gear, some drum machines. It's a little dark, but just because there's a light right here, but it just doesn't look great on the camera.
It's all right.
And there's like drum machines and synths over here, a bunch of guitars. So I'll produce up these tracks that I just really think sound cool. And right now I'm super dialed into those, where I'll spend way more time than I used to. And when I really feel good about those, I'll send them to like artists and people that I work with. And but I have to feel good about it. That's the authenticity compass that I try to live by, because if I just think, oh, maybe they'll like this, I've seen behind the curtain. And and that's a term, wizard's curtain. I watched an interview, Billy Corgan says that. I think it just means like you've seen how things work on the inside. And you see these people that are a part of these really big records, and they're making music that they really love. Mm-hmm. And so my point is, like, going back to Suno, there is a part of my writing where I'll just sit with a guitar and write a song as much as I can. And there's a song that I wrote that I just took the voice note of and just put it into Suno. And I put in a little bit of a description, and then it spit out a version that I was like, yeah, I kind of like this. So I exported the stems, and I just used the vocal, and I've been making a track around that vocal.
Right.
So I really like it for that. I'm a decent singer, but I'm not a great singer. And in the instance of some of these songs, I actually would prefer there be a female voice. And, eventually you can get an artist to do it, or maybe hire somebody, but all those things cost money, and we're all just trying to make money to make this stuff work. So something like Suno for me is really helpful in that instance, where now I have like a vocal that is like inspiring to me, singing the melodies and lyrics that I wrote, and now I'm building the song around it. Yeah. So another use of Suno that I had recently was I co-wrote a song with an artist, with another friend of mine. His name is Nick LaBelle, amazing producer, and here in Nashville. And we took this song and we put it into Suno, and it spit out this, this version of it that we were like, oh, that bass part, we need to redo that. So
Nice.
we just redid the bass part that it did.
Wow.
So I think it's a useful tool in that way.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely it's a serious topic, because I think using it the way you're using it is how it should be used. I think there are some artists, though, I don't know if they're artists actually, but people that are just basically giving prompts and creating songs, and you're like, come on, man, But so there's levels, I think, for sure. So I don't want to take too much of your time. You've already
you're good. You're good.
So a couple of you had some pretty massive credits as it was, right? You played guitar on that. So
so
how did that come about?
Yeah, so I appreciate you saying that. And the new Harry album, which sounds amazing, just came out. And so I mean, to be a part of an artist's career like that has really changed a lot about my life. Yeah. And so that opportunity just came from working with Tyler Johnson, who's been a part of all of Harry's records. It's a funny story. So when Tyler first started working with Harry, he called me and he was like, hey, I'm doing some sessions with Harry Styles. Would you want to come and play guitar and do the sessions with us? That's how I remember it. And at that time, I was just on tour. And I also remember thinking, I was like, who the hell is Harry Styles? And so it's just funny how, like, I got this opportunity. I couldn't do it because I was, like, doing something else.
Yeah.
And so, that was like that first record. Second record, Tyler and I were both living in Nashville. And I would just go over there to his studio all the time when he was working on that stuff. And he would show me earlier versions of songs from that second album. And then that album came out. And then come time for album number 3, I was actually signed to Tyler as a producer, and we were working together a lot. So I just was really in his orbit when he was working on that stuff. And he sent me a couple songs and was like, if you have any ideas, feel free to just try it. And as it was one of those ones where, like, I definitely heard it and was like, yeah, this sounds like a big song.
Yeah.
Like just version 1 that I heard. And so I basically just, spent some time in my studio trying different ideas. And then I sent him a bounce. I sent him the stems, and then he hit me up and he was like, hey, the guitars, and I also have credit for percussion programming. Nice. They're like, those things made it. And because the guitars made it, I then was able to then put in a thing through the musicians union. I got paid by the union, but then that also put me in the portal of the union, which then made it to where I was able to collect on some other royalties, which then made it to where I could collect what are called neighboring rights in other countries. So being a part of that and Flowers, both through Tyler, when you're a musician and you play on that massive of songs, there's actually money for you to collect, which is very rare. I mean, usually with musician stuff, when you play as a musician, you get like an upfront fee and you can get some royalties. But when you play on really big songs, there is money out there that you can collect. And that is the money that has allowed me to have a career.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. So it really is just having a great relationship with somebody that was in the orbit of working with Harry.
Exactly. Wow. So you mentioned earlier when you saw how your friend Tyler was working, like obviously the dedication was different than what we're used to. Was there anything else that you noticed that was like drastically different from the way other people were producing? Just any details or just
sure.
Just everything basically?
Really everything about it. I mean, like one thing I remember was like, he was in Jeff's studio and Jeff had this guitar that was like, it was just, the strings were super old. It was like the professional in me was just like, oh man, one day I'm going to come in and restring that guitar. And Tyler was like, if you do that, Jeff will definitely not be happy.
Oh, wow.
And then Jeff is an amazing, I think he went to Berkeley. Like I think, he's an amazing musician in his own right, but that was a moment where I realized like, oh, all this technical stuff, all these proper ways that you're supposed to record, none of it means anything in this world. It is vibe,
Yeah.
song, like, and also these guys are working so hard for no upfront money.
Yep.
And that's something that people don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I maybe they do now, but like the hustle that you're on to get to that level is like it's that in and of itself was very different. To watch people work and realize it's like, no, it's like real estate or something. You're like, you're investing, as opposed to like, okay, artist, give me a deposit, I'll do this. And again, a song that I did like that changed my life in 2015. You know, but it was different. I brought Tyler into the mix of working on that song, Apple Pie. We got Jeff involved. I knew it was good.
Yeah.
You know, and 13 years later, that song just got used in a Chevy commercial.
Amazing.
So again, it's like I just watched somebody work who didn't come from a working musician background, who was just chasing like he wanted to be. At that time, I felt like I was excited about what I was doing, but I think I was maybe just in an echo chamber of my own world. I don't know, but it was just all about vibe. Now they were in a nice studio, so it was like, you know, I remember we did this one story that I remember it really stuck with me was like, we were doing some writing, me, Tyler, Peter Dyer, and Rafferty at Jeff's studio. And it was super late, and they were like, okay, we're going to record the guitar direct, just right into the interface. And I remember being kind of high, and I was like, okay, we're just going to jam. What are you going to play? And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do the thing that I would have done 10 years ago. I'm just going to crank up the distortion, turn on the octave pedal. And I just started jamming on these riffs that was distorting the interface while my friend played an MPC, and they loved it. And I was like, okay, wow, I'm just being myself, and it's working. And so that I would not have gotten that, even though I'm talking about the Van Hunt stuff was like, I wasn't like in the studio with him. Right. It was like we were playing shows, but it was just another instance of me being myself, something that I thought was great, and it connected. And so, my whole life really is just to just try to stay in that, coming from that authentic place. Like I told you, I'm in a season right now where, you know, I don't have a manager anymore. I'm really just trying to get, and I don't, you know, that relationship I think worked really well for me for a long time, but I just went through some life experiences that kind of showed me that I needed to change things up a little bit. And so, you know, I was just willing to step away from that relationship and not have the dopamine spike of, hey, do you want to work with this person? Hey, we're going to have a meeting with this person. I was just like, you know what? I just want to go back to the ground floor and get really excited about what I'm doing. And now, since then, I've had some really great opportunities that have come up. But I would say that it's just, my calendar isn't as crazy of working with random people. It's more like, every time, if I am working with people, it's like we're really building something together. And then in between there, you know, I get some royalties, random things kind of come up. You work with somebody on something, and then it comes out, and then you eventually get paid for it. And now I got to chase that around. So, you know, it all it's as great as these stories all are, they come with such a high level of stress and risk. Yeah. That you have to be in a position that you can do that, you know, and not everybody is. And I get that. And so it's, you know.
Yeah. I mean, but you've created that life for yourself to where, you know, you've put in the work to where that's where you're at. So it's amazing.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm still, it's still like that, you know. I mean, that's the thing, you know, when we were in school, it was like, you know, you're in your early 20s and you're just thinking like, you know, it's funny. I have all these cassettes of that time, like of me talking to myself. I still do it now, and not on cassettes, but on my phone. But like, it's me talking about my career and what I want and what I'm trying to do. And it's funny because I still had that vision then. Yeah. Like I wanted to write my own songs. But I think my dad definitely taught me some valuable lessons, which was just like, you can't just do it. Like you have to put in the work. Like you have to sacrifice to get to that point. And, you know, so at this point, it's like there's also a lot of selfishness that goes into it too. You know, like you have to be willing to be like, okay, you know, I like this person or I like this situation, but this is taking a lot of time and it's hard to know what to do because I'm Midwestern, bro, and Midwestern people are to me the greatest people on earth, and you want to do the right thing and you want to be kind, and I'd like to think that I can still, you know, I still very much like adhere to my values, and even at times where I feel like maybe I'm being too nice, I still will be that way, because it's just. I've just been doing this long enough that people come back later.
Yeah.
A situation might be frustrating and you may not know how to handle it, but then 10 years later, that person shows back up.
Yep.
You know, and you're just like, okay, I'm glad I didn't, you know, it can be hard. I mean, we live in such a volatile, weird existence, and emotional regularity is a difficult, I mean, I meditate, I go to the gym, I try to stay excited about music. I do a lot of things to try to retain that level of enthusiasm and to keep my emotional state under control, because you put yourself out there and it's just like goosh, goosh, over and over. And so anyway, that's my it's one of those things where like just being and then, you know, you get to be a part of a record like As It Was and so many of these other things, and you realize like that was just another day at the studio.
Yeah.
The client just happened to be Harry Styles.
Happy to be Harry Styles. I know. It's amazing.
I would have tried to do something that I liked for somebody else. You know what I mean? It's just, and so for me, the fact that I've been able to like sustain a career being myself. That being said, you know, I do a lot of things in music. I mean, I DJ sometimes. Sometimes people will just hire me to do vocal production. I've gotten really, you just got to be really creative. You know, I mean, I will sell I buy a lot of records and physical media, and sometimes those things become valuable. So I'll sell those. I'll do a lot of creative things to just sort of cover my expenses and to try. And I just hold on as long as I can to just, okay, like I'm in a space where I'm creating from a very honest place. Because at the end of the day, like you are doing a job. And so sometimes you do have to show up and do a job, and you may not get to have your way with every creative decision. Yeah. And so just when I'm in seasons where I can like really just be selfish and focus on doing the things I like to do, I hold on to my money and my psyche to keep doing that, because I've just learned from watching somebody like Tyler. I was like, and then he's working for somebody that was like really successful. I mean, now Tyler is so successful, but like at that time he was working for Jeff, and I was just like, man, these guys what they're doing is like the antithesis of everything that I've ever seen and that I learned. And so it's like, okay, I've seen it. I've seen the inside, you know, and I want to be a part of records like this.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Well, thank you so much for spending so much time with me on my silly podcast that hasn't been released yet, but it will soon.
No, it's all good. And I apologize for the, you know, because I think people watching the video, they'll see all this different stuff. But yeah, good. Man, I don't feel like we were particularly close in school. Like, but I didn't you play like a telly, a black one with like I remember that.
Yeah, it was like it looked like the John 5 telly, but it wasn't the John 5 telly though. Yeah.
Shout out to John 5.
That's right. Shout out to John 5. So one question that I do on this is, what is your ideal day off when you're not working? I know most of us, like, our ideal day is actually just to be working on the stuff we love to do. But what do you do when there's just nothing and you're like, I'm just going to do nothing today?
Well, I mean, I love making music and being creative. So I think that like every day in some way, shape or form, whether I'm sampling my VHS tapes or records, or I'm going to shows, or I'm organizing my playlists or learning songs on guitar, I would say that like, I don't know if I really, I really love my family in Indiana, and so I think when I go back there, it an ideal day of if I'm not working on something is spending time with my brother and his kids, and
Nice.
seeing my friends and family there. I think that
Yep.
that's something that but a lot of those people are music related in some
Yeah.
way. So I think that that's something I love fitness. So I mean, I go to the gym a couple days a week. I take my dog. I would say that like really I have a blue healer, and she's going to be 7, and she's very reactive and high
Mm-hmm.
maintenance. And so like last night I went to the show and I got home kind of late, and so I just took her for a walk, and there was nobody out, and it was just really nice. And there was like such a peaceful zen feeling of just like I'm outside with my dog. It's quiet, and
Yeah.
we're just kicking it. Me
Yep.
and so I would say that for me, like outside of all this stuff, when I'm able to sort of just be in nature with my dog, um, that's a really peaceful feeling for me. I just, again, being a producer and songwriter, this is me like all the
Yep.
time,
Yep.
so being able to get out and be and exercise and do things like that,
Yeah.
it's really great. I mean, sometimes Joanna and I will have a day where we'll go out of town. We have In and Out now in
I know
Nashville.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so we'll do that. But yeah, I should probably be better. What I will say though, when it comes to like a day off, is I definitely like to have at least one day where I'm not really working on or thinking about other people's music.
Yeah.
Like I'm just sort of like sampling records or playing guitar or just
Yep.
doing something. I find a lot of zen in organizing things.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of records, CDs and tapes and VHS tapes. Even on my computer, like, I mean, I have a song coming out at some point this year where the main riff that the song was around was from a voice note from 2013.
That's amazing.
And so people come around. I have an infinite pool of creative ideas.
Yeah.
And I work hard to, so I mean, yeah, I wish I had like some other thing that I did.
No, you shouldn't be sorry. It's amazing. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, music is the thing.
right.
So.
And my partner, she doesn't do music. And so I think she's just a music fan. And so,
Yeah.
and she has her own like small business. And, she's sort of, it's funny. I have friends in Nashville that don't even do music. Like they're just like, I don't want to say they're normal people, but they don't work in the music business,
Right.
but they all are into music.
Yeah.
So it's been a kind of amazing to have friends that like, they're not in the industry, but they just have good taste in music.
Yeah.
So they're usually down to go see shows. They don't really have the same, they really, there's been a level of like, because I go through periods where like, especially like when I had a manager, like I just was always like trying to be around like industry people. And there's a lot of industry people that I love, but again, like last night I was just at like a bar, and I saw this band play. There was maybe 40 people there. I got to meet the girl. She's in a band called The Discussion, and she's also in a band called Kylesa. And I bought a cassette. I chatted with her. It's been fun to explore I might go get on Bandcamp and look for some weird shit. I sort of have an infinite desire for inspiration. And so I guess an ideal day off is just fucking around.
Yeah, man.
And ideally getting outside. Yeah.
Yes. That's amazing, dude. Well, once again, thank you for spending
Thanks
some
for having
time
me.
with me. And I will fix those edits.
Thank you, Doug. What a cool dude. And thank you, everyone that's been listening to the podcast. Truly appreciate it. And if you haven't, also go check out my other podcast, The Green Room, with Jeff Sabru and Bray Granari. You'll find it in my bio on our Instagram, No Flakes Podcast. You can also find us on YouTube under No Flakes Podcast. We're also on TikTok, if that's your thing, No Flakes Podcast. Send us a message, leave some comments. Hope you all enjoy, and I'll talk to you soon.